I done made too much money to ever smoke crack. Crack is whack. Hi my loves, it's your Lady Girl from around the way, where we have culture, conversation, and community. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about crack. Okay, yes, crack, and not the thing that's on your butt. I'm talking about the crack that was in your mama's pipe. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to be serious as possible, but I'm not that serious. So please don't come over here trying to judge me, y'all. My humor is a little morbid, so please, guys, please be mindful with me. Be careful with me, in the words of Cardi B, y'all, for real. Believe it or not, I like to talk about different subjects, and that specifically when it impacts like Black people and the Black culture. And so I'm making a video about like a documentary that I saw on PBS, which was, I mean, chef's kiss. Nobody does a documentary like PBS. But I wanted to talk about this today, and this video is not going to be super organized because I'm still working on how I want to push it out. But y'all, I wanted to come before you, so grab your AirPods, get your pods. I can watch that on an AirPod. Get your shit together, put it in the ear, and let's go, because I want to talk about a couple of things. When we talk about the progression of Black people, there are certain things that we need to discuss. Sometimes we can talk about systemic oppression, and we can talk about that all the time. But we talk about the Reconstruction era, we talk about the segregation movement, and then what happened between the 70s going into the 80s after the wars and things of this nature. So crack is not something that is a part of our conversation in the Black community enough, especially at least where we're seated at in life mainly. We only hear it discussed in like mainstream media, like maybe in music, or if you're watching a documentary, or even like TV shows, because it just feels like nowadays nobody is even thinking about that drug. Everybody's talking about Fetty or K-pop, whatever it is the girls are doing today. But we as a community of Blacks still are feeling the effects of crack. I know it's hard to believe that, but sister, we are. I'm here to tell you, we're gonna break it down. I see a lot of things on TikTok coming down about like how like the generation before us, like we're millennials, I don't know what they're called, Gen X or something like this, like they don't want to watch their grandkids. I know that you probably seen a lot of creators talk about like how grandmas ain't watching the kids no more. They want to be outside because they didn't really want to be parents. And so now that they don't want to be grandparents, they're just out here living their life, and they were just so rooted on survival. And then 9 times out of 10, these are our parents, and then we are left to deal with playing both roles because the grandparents is outside of the clubs now. And immediately it made me think about the crack era. And I'm like, girl, where are we going with this? And that's because a lot of those parents grew up during that time frame. And so whether they were active participants or not, everybody's life during the crack epidemic was touched by the substance. Everybody in that era was touched by that substance, period. I know that you're probably like, girl, how are you going to tie this in together? How are you going to, where are you going with this? And it's not that just crack was just an epidemic, okay, which it was. The crack era was a moment. Okay, it was a moment in time that you just had to be there for. So it's hard for me to even talk about it in a way without setting the scene. We have to like be able to discuss, we have to conceptualize it before we can really kind of talk about it. And when I say a moment, I'm not just saying like, girl, we're so lit, we outside, it's a moment. It's like being at the prime example. We are at the very beginning edge of like this new technological wave, right? We are at the ground marker of like entering this new age of technology. We see ChatGPT and open source AI and everything like this. We are literally at the beginning of this. Like 20 years ago, nobody could ever foresee a computer to be, an app that you can put in 1 or 2 lines and they can generate a whole paper behind it, a whole research, a whole everything like this. And so everything is brand new. Even something like cryptocurrencies and the NFTs, like we are at the ground. And I know it doesn't feel like because we're still in the future and things are moving and progressing, but y'all, we're really at the beginning of a new wave, an age of technology. And so we're seeing that it can be used in the positive and it can be a negative too. Like it's a resource to a lot of people. if you use ChatGPT, and if you are on a healing journey even, like you can tell ChatGPT right now, act as a therapist, this is my situation, what do you think I'm experiencing in this, that, and the third. Like, it's not going to come out and diagnose you, but surely it can give you something that's beneficial. The same is true in the reverse. If I wanted to do something harmful or negative, you know, whatever, we just have more access and we can use it, whatever. Crack was the same thing. Now, surely it wasn't the resource of what it could, you know, what it should have been. It was a weapon, according to some people. To some, you know, a lot of times people were using it as a form to escape, you know, just I'm out of my mind, I need to just go ahead and do this drug or whatever. But then also too, like it was a resource for a lot of people to be able to access a certain level of wealth, right? And I am a believer that you can use certain drugs as a modality for therapy, for like psycho, you know, like the shrooms and everything that helps heal people. I'm not saying they're crack. I don't know what the properties of it. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a historian. I'm not any of those things. I'm just saying there is room and space for drugs to a degree to help be able to heal people, especially veterans. We see a lot of veterans using certain drugs and substances to help heal themselves from PTSD and everything like this. So the point I'm making is we can have a technology and use it for good and use it for bad. And being in the beginning stages of it, we don't know how the fuck AI is going to come over and come through our lives. It could be for the good. We could be in an episode of iRobot in 20 years from now. We don't know, right? Because we're at the beginning. And that's what I'm trying to illustrate, how crack kind of just swooped in and dismantled and disrupted the communities by the dozens. But to go to my earlier point of it being a moment, right? When you think of the early 90s, I think of, and I'm a 90s baby, right? So when I think of early 90s or late 80s, I think of bamboo earrings. I need a girl with extensions in her hair, bamboo earrings, at least 2 pair, okay? And I tell her to meet me, she said, meet me halfway. You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking of long acrylic nails, rings on each finger, big chunky bamboo doorbell knocker earrings. We used to call them swirls when it was a figure eight. That's what I used to call them. You know, and there was a certain level of gaudiness and aesthetic that came along with it. That early 90s aesthetic that you're just imagining in your mind is a byproduct of the crack era. Let's be clear. That was real gold back in them days, baby. And I'm not talking about this new gold plated shit that you can go on one of these TikTok shops. I'm talking about old gold, real gold that they had. You know what I'm saying? Them hustlers, them drug dealers, cash rules everything around me. Cream get the money. Niggas was getting money. You got money, and I'm not talking. It was a different level. And so, let me paint the picture, right? So even before everybody was booming, before you at the party, right? You and your homegirls, you out, you got your swirls on, and you know, you got your finger waves, y'all cute. You cute, you dealing with this, you dealing with fine shit. You feel what I'm saying? Y'all go to this house party at the dollar party or whatever. You already hit the blunt a little bit. You smoke a little weed, maybe. You know, you might drink a little something. You got your little Boone's Farm, whatever the old heads used to drink back in the day, and you cute, right? Kenny, he hit you up, he like, yeah, you know, come through, whatever, you and your homegirls, whatever. You fucking with Kenny heavy, he got the little box joint, he fine, dark skin, brown skin, whatever you into, and y'all chilling or whatever, and he like, yeah, babe, you got the weed or whatever, y'all at the party, you at the dollar party, we be kicking it, boom. He like, yo, I know you got the little weed or whatever, but I got this new shit I want you to try, whatever. You on him. You already kind of open, you accessible, you drinking already, you smoke a little piece of weed. You know, it's like weed, baby, but it's gonna make us feel good. You about to get, you know, you want him, you on him. She already purring for him. You feel what I'm saying? He like, yeah, bitch, let me hook you up. You about to hit this once or twice. Oh, we about to get out of here. You about to have the time of your life. You going. You have no clue that the little piece of thing that he about to hook up for you is crack. Because there is no crackheads. There's no point of reference. You have no understanding of what a crackhead is, because there is no. Now, sure, you've seen junkies, right? Because let's be clear, before there was a crack epidemic, there was there was a heroin addiction. Heroin came through in the early 70s, or you know, whenever they was in war with Vietnam. And this is when we can see Frank Lucas, we can see the dope boys, we can see it in a different way. Now, The Dope Boys is different. We can talk about that too if you're interested. But the Dope Boy era was different. A lot of musicians and junkies, and the heroin has been around for years. There are so many people. Ray Charles was addicted to the dope. But we know what a dope fiend looked like. I'm not injecting no shit. I'm not smoking no dope. I hit a little piece of weed. I'ma smoke a little something. So you, in your mind, you have no point of what a crackhead is. You already open to a little piece of weed. What's a step up from a little piece of something different? That fine shit trying to put you onto. So boom. You think it's like, all right, I mean, I could hit a little, I didn't smoke the whole blunt. What's me hitting one little piece of smoke one time ain't gonna do shit for me. And keep in mind, like, if people are so funny, but a lot of people do coke. I don't know where this is gonna go as far as the YouTube monetization, but we talk for real. A lot of people participate in those kind of things. That was considered a high-end drug, right? That was considered a high-end drug. And so crack was able to be a lower-end drug because it was stepped on in the process. It wasn't free. It was free-based, and so it was easier for people to produce and people to have access to. So you really have no point of reference. If you're thinking about it from an aspect of not knowing what crack is, you think of coke. People had active coke addictions, were never addicted in the way that they were to crack. And so the point that I'm trying to illustrate is, if you had no point of idea what a crackhead was, you understood that you can do maybe a little piece of coke and still go to work, and it was associated to high class people. A good example of this is back before the tobacco companies revealed that tobacco could actually kill people, right? A lot of people equated having a Virginia Slim and smoking as a status, as a form of wealth. You understand what I'm trying to say? So it didn't have that same stigma of it. Because a bitch come around me and she's smoking a Newport, she's out of here. I'm sorry. If you ain't in your 40s and 50s and been smoking any new, and the vapes ain't no better. But I'm gonna let y'all rock. I'm gonna let y'all go ahead and have that, because I don't want y'all up under my comments. But you feel what I'm trying to say. So boom, you don't really have a clear understanding of where you about to go down, the road that you're about to go down, because you don't know. If I knew that first time I was going to smoke a cigarette and it was going to lead me to a life of talking with the drink and I'm dead, I'm not going to do it. Crack, there was no warning label. It was only associated with coke, which people were functioning and not addicts. And if you're open to a little piece of weed, you probably was open to a little piece of coke. You probably was going to hit that shit with fine shit. Boom, now you're a crackhead for the rest of your life. And so when crack first came out, I can only imagine the amount of people who unknowingly decided to try this new wave of this elevated thing to then turn into crackheads. Now, as time goes on, you'll start to see crackheads in the neighborhood. You see the effects of the drug on your brain and how quick of a hit it is and how much it made people go into a frenzy of looking for that next high, because the time frame between the peak of a high and the need for your body to physically need the next hit, crack is one of the drugs that the ratio between it is really, really small in between. Dope is a downer. It's going to put you down. It's going to get you high. The high is going to last a little bit longer, and that means it's going to be in your system longer, which means it's going to have a lasting effect, and you're not going to get dope sick as quick. Crack, I believe it's a benzo. I don't know. I'm not looking it up. But it's an upper, so it's a faster moving drug. That's how crackheads got that little energy and they move around. They got shit going on because it's a different type of drug, and it causes a different type of chemical reaction in your brain. I don't want to make this sound like it's so crazy and so far-fetched, y'all, because this happens in real life and every day. Like, all of these rappers out here, Pop the Molly, Young Sweat, everybody had a wave of trying some shit. Now, it's some girls who be like, oh, I never tried nothing in a day in my life. There are some people who are like that. Like, shout out to those girlies. And there's some other girlies who tried a little bit harder. Like, they'll try some shit. Like the story that I just illustrated, that shit, it happened time and time again. Over and over again. We think about so many people who are addicted to drugs that we know in their actual real life. 9 times out of 10, they getting put on by they was fucking with. Am I lying? Your auntie, she got put on by a nigga or a hating homegirl. Look at somebody like DMX who got hooked on drugs by a hating mentor. It happens more than you think. And I know that we are all like, oh my gosh, girl, you talking about crack. Like, y'all are more susceptible to like drugs than y'all think. I'm not even about to sit here and sugarcoat. Like, it's me y'all talking to, girl. The way y'all be popping all these pills and doing all that shit, girl, we know people be moving around. People move around. Even if you don't, I don't participate in hard drugs. And if I did, I would tell y'all. I don't give a damn about none of that shit, okay? But everybody knows somebody that does, whether you play them close or not. And I'm talking about younger people in our age group who out there and don't give a damn. So imagine back in the day with less with less visuals of what it looked like to really be drug addicted. People got caught up. Shorty got caught up with fine shit. Fine shit got caught up with the other people, and that's what happened. And the point I'm trying to illustrate is, imagine you got caught up in that first wave. Imagine you getting caught up in that first wave, just at a party, chilling with the boy you want to kick it with for the summer, and he outside freebasing, and now you addicted to crack. And here is why we're going to talk about how it impacted the Black community, okay? I feel like the crack epidemic happened similar around the time about the emergence of hip hop. Or I don't want to say the emergence, the mainstream acceptance of hip hop. You think about like the Jay-Z's, you think about, even like Jay-Z and or Ice Cube, NWA, like this era, like Ice Cube and Jay-Z are not that far apart in age. You get what I'm trying to say? Like it was an era. As a matter of fact, Jay-Z and Ice Cube are both 55 years old. And so NWA is one of like the first super rap groups, right? But they were in the height of, this crack era. So was Jay-Z. He talks about how he was moving and flipping and this, that, and the third. Like so like the crack epidemic and the rise of hip hop were coming out at the same time. So it became cool. Either you were you were a customer or a cousin. I got a cousin. Bitch, you was a customer or you was dealing. You understand what I'm saying? And so once people realized that they could make so much money actually dealing crack, because the brain chemistry of a person who's addicted to crack is going go like a rabbit. Like, it was just so intense. But then you also so that means the demand is there. There were so many gang wars, turf wars, infighting, the desperation and the level of violence people were willing to go to, because at this point, Black people had been so disenfranchised that this was the first time outside of the 60s where people and Black people were able to kind of, before integration, really able to come into the communities and have some money. After the Black Panther movement had been dissembled, after all of these things, the 60s and 70s, civil rights is over with. We then have a uptick of police brutality and aggression, and then it was even exacerbated by the crack epidemic, because the crack epidemic ushered in a whole new level of violence. And I'm not even talking about the violence just from the drug dealers. I'm talking about the violence of the people who were actually addicted. Because now we're seeing people who are stealing. Now we're seeing people who would harm you, even to their own family members. The physical violence, the emotional, the psychological violence that happened when the breakdown of families. What happens to the father who's the main primary breadwinner, who's working at the Ford factory, is now addicted to crack, and we can no longer survive. We're then going to turn to the government assistance. And we're going to need all of these other resources. This is where, we have the latchkey kids and all these things and the free lunch programs, because people were so impoverished. Nobody is understanding the weight of it. I want to say that the first time that I truly understood the gravity and the weight illustrated to me was when I watched Snowfall. Shout out to John Singleton. And this is why I feel like Black stories and cinematography is so important, because you can think about something, but it's hard to conceptualize until you actually see it by way of literature, art, however you consume it. I love film. John Singleton in Snowfall, and I know that we always talk about Franklin Saint and his whole development of the character, which was also Two Chef's Kiss, But there was a segment of the show, I don't remember what season. Franklin Saint's neighbor, the girl, she had a father who was a police officer. She came from, you know, what seems to be a halfway decent family. You know, they lived in a home, and she hit crack for the first time. She was a young girl, beautiful girl, and the first time that she took the drug, she became addicted. And there was a montage that happened that the father was trying to keep her in the house. He had boarded her up. She started fighting him. There was a moment where she tried to say, like, I'm done, I'm quitting. You could see the mental anguish and the mental conflict and the internal battle that she was going through, because she herself wanted to quit. And then it came to a point where things in her room started disappearing. Her looks just depleted. And this once beautiful, very beautiful young girl looked completely different, and her father, and you just seen the emotional toll and the mental tax that it had on him, and it broke him down completely. And I remember having an emotional response to that. And at the time, I had just lost somebody in my family, because I have been very heavily impacted by the crack epidemic by way of my handlers, you know what I mean, the people who were around me, the adults around me. And I'm not saying everybody in my family was a crackhead, but substance abuse is a real thing in my family. And you know that those things carry genetically. And one of the things that my mom told me when I was really young, bitch, don't you play with no drugs, because the first time you do it, you're gonna be addicted. And that's one thing, that's why I never fooled around. Never, bitch. I already know. I have addictive personality type anyway. Bitch, please. I could never. But going back to this, I remember just having this real emotional response to that, because it didn't dawn on me how taxing, you know, it truly was to watch somebody before you just slowly disintegrate. And it's not a slow burn, because they're constantly on, they're constantly going. And it really clicked and dawned on me, like, people were out of control. They had no control of themselves. And so you see people, they go into spaces where they're selling themselves to feed their addiction. They're selling their children to feed their addiction. They are ruining literal families. And then we're going to the separation, and that's when we see people, they actually started treating it like an epidemic. And then we had the 3-strike rule, and then in California, and then we also come through, you know, sentencing crack dealers and crack people who were abusing drugs with harsher sentencing, because we knew it was specifically targeting Black people. Bill Clinton, he knew that. And so how we're treating the fentanyl epidemic as a real crisis, a mental health crisis, they didn't give a fuck about that in the 90s. It was, oh, you have crack, when they knew crack and cocaine were right here. The coke still had a lesser sentence than crack. That's just literally penalizing people for being poor and penalizing people for having a mental health substance abuse addiction. And when I say that, if you ever watch films that try to illustrate, you know, crack era, it is so destitute and impoverished. It's like the next level. It's like a bomb came through and hit. It literally, that's a good way to put it. The bomb came through and exploded. And so even whether you never even, you know, my mom always famously used to tell me growing up, like, I ain't no crackhead, mama. Like, girl, like, and I didn't understand. And I didn't understand what she used to say, but it used to piss me off. Like, girl, I don't care. I still feel hurt. I'm still hurt by the things that you're doing. Like, sure, you're not a crackhead, but damn, like, you know what I mean? But what she was saying to me was, I didn't give in to the peer pressure that was all around me. And I'm still in my right state of mind to a degree. That's what she was trying to say. It could be worse, bitch. You could come home and all your shit is gone and the TV is gone and I'm out here and I'm tricking. And you gotta walk by me going to school. Because people dealt with that. And a lot of people in her generation did. A lot of people in her generation did. So she grows up and then she has a child. And then, you know, she's never healed. She's never fully understood what exactly that she was going on. She's constantly in survival, because when trauma happens, if you don't unpack that trauma, you stay at that point. Emotionally, mentally, not physically, of course. But you don't move past it. And I don't want to single out my mom, but so many other people who were impacted. Right? A primary parent is addicted to drugs, so you don't have what you need emotionally, you don't have what you need physically, you don't have what you need financially. That person is now unsafe. It's going to open you up to a whole new slew of abuses and violence that you didn't even know that was there, because the parent who was in their right state of mind protected you from that. And then that child grows up and then have another child, and so they're not completely healed, because this is how generationally people are cursed. Because it's like, you're going to pass it on to the next. You're going to pass it on to the next. And so I always say, like, no, you don't really do crack, but you got a lot of crackhead tendencies. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You feel what I'm saying? I'm going to get you before you hit me. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I can always tell when somebody grew up around somebody who suffered with substance abuse. One, from my own personal experience. And also, two, from my professional experience. And I just feel like at some point I want to talk about this from a more historical standpoint, but there is something to be said about how Black people have been impacted by the crack epidemic and still are facing it today. Sometimes people, parents and dads have gone away for years and years, and they probably just coming home now off them sentences. You understand what I'm saying? And so while we're dealing with the fentanyl crisis and everything like this, I always like to think back to how Black people were handled and treated while we were literally being targeted and the communities were being pillaged by that substance. Girl, I want to know what you think. Drop down in the comments. Let me know. Let me know what you think, okay? As always, I'm sending you much love and much light, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.